Greetings and welcome to this episode of the Heal and Restore podcast with your host, me, Randy, and of course the hostess with the mostest, the beautiful one and only blonde bombshell beach girl, my wife,
I thought
Cathy.
you got stumbled for words
I was
there.
getting stumbled for words. I know what I wanted to say, but I couldn't choose them
Good.
quick enough.
Thank you, honey.
Of course, you're welcome.
Yes. Welcome.
Welcome. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
How are you? Yeah, it's another week.
Yeah.
Another week gone.
I know. It's like 52 weeks in the year and we're counting down already.
Man.
We'll be halfway through them.
I wish I was younger again because time slowed down, it seemed like.
Felt like it, yeah.
It's
crazy.
Know. So anyways, we're back here and we're going to continue talking about issues in relationships and what we...
Challenges. Let's not call them issues. They're challenges in relationships.
Yeah, challenges, right? It's like
use your words wisely.
Exactly. It's like one of my bosses one time I said, Mike, we got a problem. He goes, Randy, no problems, only solutions.
That's right.
Right, only solutions.
So we're here to help with some solutions.
Absolutely. And a couple weeks ago, we started out with quit taking things personally in marriage. And then we followed that with vulnerability, the hidden strength in your marriage. And then, of course, last week we talked about the power of forgiveness in long-term relationships.
Yeah.
So I hope that you all got stuff, at least one trinket out of that.
Yeah. And if you haven't heard those, you can always go back and pull those up from the archives because they're all available to you. But this particular week, this topic is something that's near and dear to my heart, something that we've experienced and had to work through.
And it falls right under the vulnerability and the forgiveness.
Oh yeah, they all kind of interlink each other.
Exactly.
So today we're going to talk about trust and how to rebuild it when it's been broken.
And man, a lot of our couples have had that happen.
Yes,
right, and they're working really hard to rebuild it.
Yeah, definitely. Right? So in our conversation, as we always do, we always like to talk about diving into the conversations that help you heal, grow, and strengthen your relationship. Yeah. So today, talking about trust that's been broken, we're going to tackle one of the hardest and most important issues in a relationship.
Yes.
And that's rebuilding that trust after it's been broken. So it doesn't matter if it's been in your marriage, a relationship, family, friendships, broken trust, it can leave deep wounds.
Even work.
And
any aspect.
Right. Yeah. But I'm here to tell you, I am walking proof that healing is possible. Yes. And not only myself, but for many other people who have had to work through
myself,
that. That have had to work through this.
Right.
So there's a scripture that when we first kind of start putting this together, I looked at this and I'm like, tell me what you mean by that. So why don't you share the scripture and give us some insight on that?
So the Proverbs is 3:3, and it says, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Right. So that's a powerful scripture, but when our trust has been broken, it seems like it'd be really easy to let our love go and our faithfulness go, right? And that's when we have to, I'm just going to say, dig deeper, right? And really hold on to the love that caused us, or that the love, how we fell in love with our partner, right? Or how we love our family, and the faithfulness that we've had with our partner. Now, remember, we're all human beings, right? And we are going to falter. And we're going to talk a little bit about intentional and unintentional trust breaking in this podcast a little later. So remember, it's no matter what happens, right? We have to make sure we hold on to that love and that faithfulness. Don't let it leave you.
Yeah.
Because if you let those two leave you, in my opinion, you're likely going to be doomed for life.
Well, right? I wouldn't say doomed for life so much as that it's going to make life hard.
It's going to make life difficult.
Yeah, it's going to make life hard, not just in rebuilding or building trust in the person that hurt you, but in a lot of relationships.
Well, yeah, and that happens a lot, is our trust. A lot of us, our trust is broken when we're kids, right? And we think we're okay, and we're working on it okay, but the reality is that the way that trust is broken when we were kids affects all of our
everything
relationships.
We do. Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to just dive into, we've got several different categories we want to talk about. And the first one we're going to discuss is why is trust? What is trust and why it matters?
Yes.
So define trust in relationship terms, Rand. Tell us what that looks like.
In relationship, it means feeling safe, emotionally and physically, right? It's built through, and here's the thing with trust. It's built through consistency, honesty, and reliability. Knowing that your partner will show up, tell the truth, follow through on promises, and treat your heart with care, right? How many of us out there, and I was guilty of this, I'm sorry, we're good for a week or two. I'm sorry, we do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And pretty soon our sorries mean absolutely nothing.
Right.
So it's being consistent on when we say we're sorry, we must follow through with a positive action. We must change the way we believe.
Change the behaviors.
Change the behavior. It's an absolute must, right? So why is trust foundational to emotional and physical intimacy, right?
Well, I'll tell you why.
Why is that, babe?
So for me, this really still stands today, but it creates the safety needed to be fully seen, known, and vulnerable. So if I want to trust, I have to feel first safe. And when I feel safe, I feel like I can be seen. My voice will be heard. And I can be vulnerable in having hard conversations. But if I'm not trusting the situation, the person, the circumstance, it's going to be really hard to hit on any of those things. So trust is foundational for me when I can have safety, when I can be seen, heard, valued, and I can then be vulnerable.
Exactly.
But the other thing that is when trust is present, a partner can open up without fear of judgment or betrayal.
That's really huge.
Yeah. That's part of that being available, being okay to be vulnerable when trust is present.
We work a lot with our clients on becoming vulnerable, and it's a dicey road to go down because if they become vulnerable, they take that risk. It's a risk for them, and their partner doesn't respond in a loving way. They're liable to crawl right back in the rabbit hole they just came out of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as a partner, when we start becoming vulnerable. When I became vulnerable with Cathy, she was very patient, understanding, and loving. And that was made her able to be vulnerable with me.
And I was able to open up with you because I felt that the trust was building through vulnerability, definitely.
Exactly.
And the other thing is foundational trust. It allows us to love at a deeper level.
Yes. It
allows our walls to start coming down. And we connect and thrive both emotionally and physically when our love deepens. So again, these are parts of processes through gaining back and that trust. But without trust, the intimacy feels unsafe and the connection becomes strained. It becomes superficial. It becomes hard. It becomes chaos. Anything that is without trust, you're going to lose all of those things. It's just going to feel like chaos.
And a lot of people, the word intimacy means sex, right? Well, that's not, good sex is a byproduct of very good intimacy.
Of healthy intimacy.
It's healthy intimacy, right? And in order for that healthy intimacy, our spouse, I'll talk on mine and Cathy, she has to feel safe with me, right? She has to know that she can trust me. She has to know that I'm going to protect her, that I'm going to be there for her. Do we falter? Yeah, we falter. But the difference is that we can talk about it and we generally move through it very quickly, right? I mean, one of the scriptures in the Bible when it comes to love, it says in 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8, we don't keep track of any wrongs, right? And that's critical. We've got to learn to let those wrongs go. So if I was the one trying to earn my trust back with Cathy, which I was for a while, if I kept doing the same thing over and over, I'm not gonna
happen,
right? And so if she was to keep bringing the past up to me when I wasn't doing it, that would even give me a reason to say, well, if you're going to keep accusing me of this and treating me this way.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on too, because that is one key of how trust can take longer than necessary.
Longer than necessary. So you do not want to be throwing the past in your partner's face.
Absolutely. So, there are different signs of when trust is broken. There's betrayal, lying, there's the emotional withdrawal, there's past trauma responses.
That's a big one.
And so how it often shows up, we talk about betrayal. Betrayal can be anything from infidelity, dishonesty, secrecy.
Real quick, I have a quick story on that, and you'll remember it. So when I was in early recovery, I was sitting down having coffee with two of my buds, and we all rode Harleys or some type of motorcycle at that point in time. And we decided that we wanted to ride from Palm Desert up over the hill and to Julian the next day, which was a Wednesday. And I had asked Cathy, or I told her I was going to take her to lunch on that Wednesday. Without thinking, I agreed, yeah, we'll go ride. Now, yeah, let's do it. It's going to be fun. So then as I left and I got in my truck, I said, uh-oh. I told Cathy I would take her out to lunch tomorrow. And so I was scheming in my head, how am I gonna do this? Right? Am I gonna lie to her? And I said, no, I can't lie to her. So that was my first thought, and that was my old behavior. Somehow I'll just weasel my way out of it and it'll be a lie, right? And I said, no, I can't do that, right? And so, because that would have been a big secret, a lot of betrayal, a lot of dishonesty in that, right? So I just called her up and says, hey, I know I told you I'd take you out to lunch tomorrow. A couple of the guys, they want to ride up over to Julian tomorrow. Would you mind if I rode with them and I'll take you out to lunch on Thursday? She said, that'll be fine. Yeah. Right? But I was sitting there trying to scheme how I could get away with going riding and not letting her know I was going riding. It's like, see, you can't do it. That was my old thinking, right?
I think a lot of us have been in that position. So
it's like Romans 12 says, do not be conformed to the ways of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So was I going to stay in the old way or?
Yeah, right. Move something new. You do something new. So we're going to go ahead now and talk about, you talked about lying, lying and half-truths.
Right.
Even small lies, they erode the safety. Can you imagine in that particular story, had you done it and I found out about it?
Oh, man.
There's betrayal, there's lies. Now I'm losing my trust. I don't feel safe. Do your words really mean anything? So, that doesn't work. That breaks trust very quickly.
A half-truth is a lie. Yeah. I mean, there's no half-lie. It's either a lie or it's the truth, right? Yeah. And here's the thing that I learned to look at. Am I going to lie to Cathy? No. Am I going to? Yeah. Cathy, I'm afraid to tell her that I want to do something for fear that she's going to be upset with me and not let me do it, blah, 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 blah. So I don't say nothing to her, right? And I go ahead and do it. And I lied to her about doing it, and I think I get away with it, right? And then a month down the line, something comes up, and she goes, wait a minute, I thought but you did this. And I go, oh, man.
Those lies come back and bite you in the butt.
And it's 10 times worse. I would rather face my fear of letting her know what was going on at the moment.
Yeah. Than to find out later. Yeah. Right. Yeah. The other thing that's important that we have to remember when it comes to trust being broken is it can show up as emotional withdrawal. A person shuts down. They avoid connection. They do anything to avoid conflict. They just basically check out. It's an emotional withdrawal.
And what's wrong, Kath? Nothing. I'm good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Then we convince ourselves of that, and that just takes us down another rabbit hole.
Right.
So, and then this one's really huge. It's trauma responses. If you've had any type of trauma or childhood experiences, when you have a trauma response, you become hypervigilant. You have fear of abandonment. Or you might even have emotional outbursts that are triggered by your past pain.
Right.
And so those types of things are things that break trust over time as well.
Generally, if we're having a conversation with our spouse or somebody and it's just a conversation, they might say something that triggers us and we blow up. And the reality is that 9 out of 10 times, we're blowing up at something that has nothing to do with the conversation that we're having at this point in time.
Yeah.
It's a trigger from our past.
Yeah. So if you have any of these signs, if any of these signs are relatable to you, healing is going to be needed for trust to be rebuilt.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is your I don't want to say your warning, but this is just an answer to some of the things that you're struggling with.
Call the action to get a hold of Healing Restore Counseling.
Absolutely. So how does trust get broken? I mean, it gets broken in so many different ways, but the most obvious common causes is infidelity, dishonesty, keeping secrets, addiction, emotional neglect, childhood experiences, which we've talked about. These are all areas where trust has been broken.
When we talk about infidelity, there's the what we first think of, right? But an alcoholic or drug addict, their mistress is their drug of choice.
Right.
And it's another form of infidelity.
It's an emotional
thing, right? So
emotional infidelity.
100%.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about a little bit about intentional versus unintentional breaks in trust. This is very interesting as we're doing some study on this is, what are these? I don't know that I've really thought about it. So, Randy, share what intentional breaks in trust looks like.
Intentional, it involves a conscious choice. We consciously make the choice to betray or deceive.
Yeah.
Right? We do that by cheating on our spouse. That's a conscious choice, right? We're making choices. I choose to lie about finances or secret behaviors, right?
Yeah.
I choose to break promises that were clearly agreed upon. Remember, these are choices that we make. It's not just, I didn't mean to do it. No, you made a choice to do it.
Yeah.
You very well meant to do it. And it's, a choice to manipulate or withhold important information, right? Those are the unintentional, those are the intentional ways that we break trust.
Right.
Okay, it's very cut, dry, and clear. The unintentional way that we break trust, and these happen without harmful intent, right? But they still cause damage, right? Is forgetting an important commitment or date, right? Like your anniversary, or God forbid I forget my wife's birthday, but she'll never let me forget it.
Those that know me know my birthday starts July 1st. It ends July 1st of the following year.
It starts the day after Christmas. Come on, let's get real.
It's a whole year. It's a whole year.
So this is another big one, and this has to do with codependency, right? Is overpromising and underdelivering due to stress or overwhelm, right? So don't overpromise, right? Make sure that matter of fact, they say don't really ever make a promise because promises, if they're broken, can be quite devastating.
That's how they break the trust.
That's how the trust is broken, right? You're not doing it intentionally. You meant to follow through with your promise. It just didn't happen.
Right.
And then failing to be emotionally present during a critical moment, right? That's
what comes to mind on that one is, I was thinking failing to be emotionally present during a critical moment reminds me of, we both have had losses in our lives, and I lost both my parents in our marriage. Ooh, that just got me. But it would be really hard if you were not committed to be there for me emotionally. And I think that would be, I didn't think of that of a form of trust, an unintentional trust being broken. But thank God you weren't. But to me, that's just the first thing that comes to mind is if there's a loss or a death or something that's really hard and you weren't present for me. I didn't think about that, of how that would break my trust.
What does that presence look like to you? I mean, a lot of people could go, well, there's too much. I got to do this. No, what does that presence look like?
So for me, I think it's just, being present to me is emotionally present. How can I help you? Is there anything I can do for you? Let me take care of this so that you can focus on this. It's not just about being present in the room. No. That is part of it. But knowing that you are invested in my pain with me. Now, not that I want to drag you down a pain rabbit hole, but that you are feeling with me.
Right.
And that creates a safe space for me.
Yeah.
So that was a good question.
And that could be, taking something off the table that, normally Cathy would do, or something around the house that needs to be done.
Yeah.
I take that off the table for her so she can focus on what she needs to focus on in that the grieving moment.
Yeah, and then the last unintentional break in trust, this is really kind of interesting too, is reacting harshly during conflict without realizing the impact. And I think we went through a cycle of that ourselves.
Yeah.
Both of us were there were times when we would react harshly in a conflict, not realizing that the impact was going to affect trust at a later time. It didn't happen right away. No. It's something that happens down the road.
But and a lot of that with that last one is, without realizing the impact, is because of some childhood trauma. It's it's like, what's the root? Where's this coming from?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So again, we'll talk about that I think a little bit later. It's part of the healing journey is we just can't. well, it's just who I am. No, it's not. It's like, why do you respond that way? What's the root? If we don't get to the root, we're just mowing the grass.
We're going to talk about that. Yeah, definitely, because that's something that comes up a lot in a lot of these experiences. So both types of these trust breaking, intentional and unintentional, require repair. But how we approach them may be different based upon the intent, the awareness, and the willingness to take responsibility. So we talk about this a lot with our clients. We've talked about a lot on several different podcasts, but how does unresolved trauma from our childhood erode trust, even if the partner didn't cause it?
It's a good question. And a lot of times what that comes from, right, is the partner, in our case, Cathy did nothing wrong. She was a great wife. She treated me, she loved me better than I've ever been loved before. But because of our past and the way we grew up, and we're working with a couple clients right now on this, it's called self-sabotage, right? And we are not trusting our partner, our spouse,
based upon your old experiences.
Based upon our old experience. So what we're doing is we're bringing our past trauma into today and living in that trauma today, which is no longer part of our life, right? And in a lot of ways, it's very understandable because they've been hurt so bad by different people in their life. And now Mr. Right or Mrs. Right comes along, they're treating them like a queen or a king. And it's like, wait a minute, this is too good. Something's going to fall, right? And then they start self-sabotaging, right? Because they don't trust the feeling that they're getting of being loved unconditionally. Right.
And then that breaks down the trust in the relationship.
That breaks down the trust in the relationship, right? Yeah. And it's sad because we just had a discussion like this with one of our clients the other night, and it made her realize, that's where all this mistrust is coming from. That's where this doubt's coming from. So I just need to work on, I'm okay today, right?
Being present
in the moment and where are you at today. But the important part too is for the partner or spouse to understand where that pain's coming from so they can respond in a very loving, understanding, kind way.
Yeah, there's a lot of compassion and empathy required in that. So, and that kind of leads into this next little category too is, what are the initial steps after a trust has been broken? Because it is a process. It's like forgiveness. Forgiveness is a process. Building trust again is a process. So I think the very first thing, and I think this was key for me, is that we have to acknowledge the pain. Yeah. We can't rebuild what we don't admit is broken. And we can't change what we're not willing to look at.
It's like the first step. It's the only step we have to be perfect. We admitted that we are carrying the pain of our past and that our life has become unmanageable because of it.
It's affected. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. I mean, it's admit that the pain's there. It doesn't mean you're weak.
No.
Right? Actually, when you admit that and you surrender it, you become stronger.
Well, the analogy that popped into my head is when we are in pain, let's say we get a cut. Let's say we have a cut on our arm and it's painful. The only way to heal it is by treating it.
Right.
And we have to treat our pain by either going to a doctor who brings healing, going to a coach, a marriage coach, a life coach who helps bring healing. So we have to work at it. It's not going to just happen overnight. No. We have to say, ooh, this hurts, and I need to do something about it.
Right.
And so that's, I think, acknowledging the pain right away.
It's huge.
Yeah. And then the next step is, the difference. We have to look at the difference between what is guilt and what is accountability.
So guilt is, man, I screwed up. I did something wrong, right? Now that I admitted it, now are we going to be held? We need to be held accountable. Number one, hey, I feel guilty because I messed up, right? And now I want to change. So that's where the accountability comes in. You work past the guilt, and the guilt might stay with you for a little while, and that can be okay. Guilt is just, I did something wrong. That's what guilt means, right?
Right. It doesn't mean you're wrong forever.
No,
it means you've done something wrong.
You've done something wrong. It's completely different than shame, right? And so now it's time to, the only way to get to the guilt is to be accountable for your actions moving forward.
Acknowledge them and walk with them and talk with them and find a life coach that can walk through that with you. Definitely.
Exactly. Right.
Heal and Restore Counseling. We can do that here too.
That's what
And we are doing that with a lot of our clients too. Yeah, definitely. Because trust can be broken in like we've talked about, so many different ways.
Some of our clients, they feel guilty. It's like, okay, but
absolutely.
Now you want to be held accountable for your progress forward. Right.
And that's healing for both parties.
Exactly.
Accountability is not just for the person whose trust has been broken.
No.
It's for the person who has also broke that trust. There's accountability required on both parties.
It's like we have to become, as a trust breaker, we have to become trustworthy. Mm-hmm. That's the best thing I can say.
That's good.
Do we trust ourselves? Are we a trustworthy person? Mm-hmm. Right? And if we're not, we got to do some self-reflection. And why am I not trustworthy? Mm-hmm. Right? Until I become trustworthy, I'm liable to repeat the behavior over and over again.
Yeah, no, that's good. And we have to understand the importance of honesty, remorse, and taking full ownership. And I think that was one of the things that was helpful to me. I'll be honest with you, when you had the affair as our therapist, we've said this many times. She said, Randy, if Cathy wants to talk about it, you're going to have to listen. You're going to have to acknowledge her and validate her, because that's how we're going to build trust. Now, there were a few times where I'd ask questions, and you were honest about that, but you also took full ownership, and you also took action to change.
Right.
So, and that's kind of how we close this. Is how we close this little section out on how on the steps of trust being broken. Is we have to allow for time.
Yep.
We have to allow for consistency. And we have to become humility.
Right.
When we put time, consistency, and humility all together, when we add those up, that's where rebuilding trust will be. Part of that, though, and we've talked about this, is looking at the root.
Yeah, we have to be willing, because we don't want to just mow the grass no more. Mm-hmm. We want to dig the root up, right? If we can't get that root, then we're going to keep having these weeds pop up from that same root ball, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that we get the root, okay? So that what happens is, with the time, consistency, humility, our new behavior becomes consistent over long periods of time. Too often I hear stories about, I was good for 6 months, and I didn't drink for 6 months, and she's nagging, and she's doing. I go, dude, it's been 6 months. You're closer to your old behavior than you were further away. You've got to be consistent. It's got to be. It can't just be for 6 months.
You've got to allow time.
It's a whole new life change.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So as we kind of start winding down here, this is the part that, what does rebuilding trust look like in practice? How do we apply that? So for the one who broke trust, and we're going to talk about this, transparency.
Yeah.
No secrets. Mm-hmm. You might want to over-communicate. Sharing of passwords. Remember, nothing is hidden. Okay. Everything is exposed and out there. We can't keep a secret about one thing and expose everything else. Everything has to be out in the light.
It's either God is everything or God is nothing. So there's no half measures when it comes to this. Mm-hmm. Cathy has full access, and it's been 21 years, right? But she still has full access to everything. Yeah. And there's nothing for me to hide, right? If something comes up and she wants to question it, then I'll answer it. But there's nothing. I have nothing to hide.
Yeah. Right? And the other one is patience. Don't rush your partner to get over it. If Randy had told me get over it, I don't think I would have healed. I don't think I would want to be in any type of a relationship where trust is necessary.
Please, those 3 words are vile and very damaging. Yeah. Remove the words "get over it" from your vocabulary. We have to walk through it, because too often we've been trying to get over it by jumping over it, going around it, however we got to do it to avoid the situation. We can't do that.
We got to walk through it.
We have to walk through it. Mm-hmm. We're never going to forget it, right? But we have to walk. I've said this. We have to walk through the shame and the pain one more time at least in order to heal from it.
Right. So, and this final one on the person who broke trust, this was key for me as well, is small, consistent actions that rebuild confidence over time. Randy, you were so good at being consistent with your new actions contrary to your old behaviors. You created new behaviors. And that helped rebuild my confidence, and I'm sure it helped rebuild your confidence. Realize, you know what, you don't have to be that person anymore. No. You can be a new creation. And so it's those small, consistent actions that rebuild confidence for not only the person who broke the trust, but for the person whose trust has been broken.
Right. And the key to that one, too, is you have to surround yourself with healthy, like-minded people. I mean, I surrounded myself with men, older men that had what I wanted.
You're now those older men.
I'm only 29.
Okay. Thank goodness I'm ready again.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can't keep up with me, so I mean, and you're younger than me.
Oh, Lordy. Okay, here we go.
But so I surrounded myself. My mentors were all older than me. They were wiser than me. Yeah. One of them was married. The other was just wiser. He had been married. And that's what I surrounded myself with in order to start changing my behavior, in order to start transforming and renewing my mind. Yeah. I had to find the right people. I had to quit conforming to the ways of the world. Yep. So Romans 12:2 is the three most... It's
good for everything.
It's everything.
Everything,
right?
Yeah. So, and now, for the person who was hurt, the person whose trust was broken, allow room for healing without punishment. And
explain that. We've talked about that a little bit.
So without punishment, a couple things come in mind. Don't punish yourself over and over again with like, oh, I should have known, or how did I not see this coming?
Good.
So for myself, don't punish yourself. But also don't punish the person who harmed you over and over again, because all you're going to do is stay in that pain cycle.
Yes.
And so we want to be able to allow room for healing for both parties without punishing self or punishing your partner, your spouse, whoever it was that hurt you. And then the other thing that's really important is that we want to learn the difference between wisdom and fear-driven control.
So wisdom is rooted in discernment and healthy boundaries. It responds with clarity, calm, and awareness. Calm is the key.
Yeah.
And awareness of what you're saying and what the situation is. Choosing what's best for the relationship and your well-being.
Yeah.
That's where the renewing of your mind comes into play big time.
And you said rooted in healthy boundaries, and so that's the thing too. Is sometimes we have to realize that we have to create those healthy boundaries.
And those boundaries are for us, not for the other people.
Exactly.
I think that's what people.
And setting healthy boundaries is only one component. It's keeping those boundaries in place is the other part of it. And if you struggle with boundaries, that's something that we can help with as well. And a lot of our clients, even ourselves, we had never had any type of boundary setting in relationships, and most people don't. So it's not uncommon. But the fear-driven control, that's another one that's, on the other hand, it's fueled by insecurity and anxiety. And these are all things from our past as well. It tries to manage people or situations to avoid the pain. But it often leads to micromanaging, mistrust, and emotional disconnection. And I can honestly say I think a lot of that dark spot in our marriage was fear-driven control.
And a lot of fear-driven control comes from this. When we were kids and if we were experiencing trauma as children, we had no control over that. Right. We were kids and we just had to go with it. As adults, right, somewhere along the line we said, when I get older, nobody's ever going to control me, right?
Right.
So now what happens is it reverses and we overcompensate for not being able to control when we were kids, what happened to us when we were kids. So that's where that fear-driven comes in, because I'm afraid to let them have any kind of control over my life, because if I give them an inch, they're going to take a mile.
Yeah,
right?
That's good. Yeah. So, wisdom and fear-driven control. This is beautiful. One protects connection, and the other tries to prevent pain. So wisdom is going to protect connection.
Yeah.
And the fear-driven control is going to prevent pain.
And that whose pain is it preventing?
Yeah.
The one that's creating the pain.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? Ourself usually, if we're the one that's in that fear-driven control mindset. Yeah. So, if you're struggling in any of these areas, please, this is your perfect opportunity to consider counseling, consider coaching. Randy and I are here to help walk you through it. And interesting enough, a lot of our clients that come to us because they're struggling in their marriage. They say it's communication. Yep, that's typically it. But there are a lot of underlying causes and conditions that are found through coaching. And trust rebuilding is one of those as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, trust isn't rebuilt just in one conversation.
No.
It's rebuilt over time.
It's like change of behavior and consistency of change of behavior over time.
Yeah, yeah. So last week we talked about forgiveness.
Right.
And so we want to just kind of, part of trust building or rebuilding of trust, forgiveness is part of. Everything's intertwined. Vulnerability, trust rebuilding, forgiveness.
Taking things personally.
All of these all kind of tie together. So what forgiveness is and what it isn't. So forgiveness is not forgetting, excusing, or ignoring.
Right.
You're not going to forget that, and that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness is letting go of the right to keep punishing the other person.
Mm-hmm.
I love that one too. And then forgiveness clears the emotional space for trust to even begin to return. So without forgiveness, it's very difficult to build trust.
Matter of fact, I think it's impossible.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of the things we have to remember is forgiveness is a decision. Trust is a process.
Yes.
So,
and both, as much as forgiveness is a decision, trust is a decision. As much as trust is a process, forgiveness is a process.
That's really good. I like that. Yeah. So as we get ready to close out here, I just want to kind of go over some key points that we've talked about. We know that trust can be rebuilt, but it takes time, humility, and consistent action. And I love that. But it's okay to struggle with trust. It just means that your heart is trying to heal. So if you struggle in trust rebuilding, that's okay. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep taking action. Remember, it takes time. It takes humility. And it takes that consistency.
I want to throw one thing out there I just thought of. When it comes to trust, not trusting, who is it that you don't trust? Yourself or your partner or your spouse? Is it yourself you don't trust? Deep down inside? Or is your partner or spouse? Think about that. Just some food for thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really good. And so I want to leave you with this encouraging thought. So just remember, you're not alone. Whether you're rebuilding trust in your marriage or learning how to trust yourself, again, after being hurt, healing is possible. And you're already on the path just by being here. Listening to this podcast is telling me that you are on the path.
That you're not alone, whether you're rebuilding trust in your marriage or learning how to trust yourself. That's powerful, because I can remember real quick. We're at the end of this. Okay, sorry, but this
your mind goes.
But this is important. When Deborah asked me about doing inner child work, right? And I can remember when I says okay, and that little Randy came out, and I could see him. He was like behind my heart, and he was peeping his head out behind my heart. And he said this to me. He goes, Randy, are you sure you can trust Deborah? Because you've trusted people before and they've hurt you. So could I trust myself and my judgment? Right? Because I had been hurt badly by people I thought I could trust. So that's another point to think about. That's why I said, is it you don't trust yourself, or you don't trust your spouse, or is it a little of both? Yeah,
that's really good. That's beautiful. I just had that whole visual when you said the little Randy sticking his head out behind your heart.
I still see it.
Yep, I can see it. So here's your call to action this week. If you have found this episode helpful for you, share it with someone who needs hope.
Right.
And don't forget to subscribe. You can leave us a review on this podcast. Let us know your thoughts on it. How did it help you? What would you like to hear more of? We would love to be able to hear from you. So please, call to action. Share it with somebody.
Right.
And then as we close everything out, we've got just some house cleaning things that we want to make sure we go over. We've got books.
Yeah, we got.
Randy has been busy with some book work here. So share what our books are. They're all available on Amazon or on our website.
And multiple different, what do you call them? Not platforms, but paperback, Kindle, or audiobook, right? So we got the Healing the Wounded Child Within. Right? We got How to Heal and Restore Your Marriage. We got Renewing Bonds. And then we also got Hearts Reunited, right? And then those are all out right now on Amazon, as well as my 30-day devotion of the wholeness, right? And then the Healing Path, right? Survivor's Guide to Healing from Abuse is going to be out by the end of June. It's in the final stages right now. I should have the final manuscript back on Tuesday. Good. That's what she told me.
Yeah,
and
perfect.
then it's just a matter of getting it put out there.
Yeah.
So,
and then we just want to remind you that here at Heal and Restore Counseling, we're here to journey with you. We're here to help. And so we do have our 1 hour, no cost to you discovery session. Reach out to us through our website at healandrestorecounseling.com and let us know. And we can set something up. If you're local to us, we can do it in person.
mm-hmm.
If you're anywhere in the world, country world, we can do it through Zoom. And we would love to just sit and chat with you for an hour, listen to what your needs and desires are. We'll share a little bit about ourselves and see if we're going to be a good fit for something that we can start a journey of healing with you on. And then just as a reminder, like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. We've got TikTok, we've got YouTube, we've got Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah.
We're all out there. Feel free to just share them with other people. Like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and we would love to hear from you. So any feedback you have would be beneficial to us.
Yeah, exactly. Good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, so that's great.
Okay.
That's it.
We got it all done?
I think so, honey.
We got it all done. All right. So I hope you all get something out of this.
Yep.
And I just want to say this. People,
I know what you're saying.
It's Friday. I'm tired. And nobody tells you they love you today. Randy does.
Cathy does.
But more importantly, God does. Be blessed, everybody. Have a fabulous week, and we'll see you next week.
Be blessed.